A very warm welcome to IDFC First Bank Presents Leaders of Tomorrow Season 13, powered by Tata Tele Business Services. I'm Ritvika Gupta, and tonight we are bringing you highlights from our first springboard of Season 13, hosted in Mumbai, centered on the theme Purpose, Progress and Prosperity. From real estate to logistics, this episode features industry leaders discussing how capital, confidence and capability can shape an entrepreneur's journey. On the show today, we'll be featuring R.S. Subramanian, SVP South Asia DHL Express, Neha K. Motwani, founder Luma Fertility, Ashutosh Limai, director and co-head strategic advisory and valuations, Anorak Property Consultants, and Naya Saggi, founder EDT.
The topics for our panel today is capital, capability, and confidence. So, by way of just starting off this discussion, you can take this as an icebreaker question. I'm going to ask a common question to all my four panelists. If you were to advise the next generation of business leaders, which of these three would you tell them to prioritize? Capital, confidence, or capability? Now, I know the correct answer is yes, it's a combination of all three, but if you had to just pick one, what would it be and why? So let's start with you, Naya.
I'd probably go with confidence because the world is changing before our eyes every hour. And I think it goes back to kind of finding what is deeply human about us. And part of a very large part, actually, of what is deeply human about us is our resilience to look at every situation in the eye and then overcome it. So I'd say it's certainly confidence, not a misplaced confidence, but a confidence that you can get to the next level based on who you are.
Mr. Subramania?
I think I'll have to differ a bit.
Okay.
Yeah, my pick will be capability.
All right.
I think if you listen to what the minister was saying, that's also underlining capability. For me, capability means having know-how, having technology, having a deep consumer understanding, having domain access, knowing your market, your customers, your business. Yeah. More importantly, knowing the skills and competence needed to be able to run an enterprise. Yeah. If you find somebody capable, capital will chase capability. Yeah. When capital chases capability, I think confidence will come.
Absolutely.
So for me, my pick is capability.
Yeah. Nice. Neha, whom do you agree with?
I think it's a very tough choice and tempted to say all three, but I actually agree with Sir. I feel like capability is really the core and the starting point because without capability, there's no confidence, and without capability and confidence, there's no capital. So capability is literally like the building block of knowing what you want to build, where you want to build, what is your moat, how do you navigate a particular industry that you're in, how do you know your consumers. And I think really sort of going into the depth, being the most prepared person in the room, I think that gives you the kind of confidence and then the ability to, be out there and sort of, raise capital.
Fantastic. Ashutosh?
I'll go for confidence. I do believe that the confidence has to be about what one is made up of and then what one does best, and then work on that to manifest that capability. I think without confidence, manifestation is not possible in my view. And capability does not mean that it has to be superlative. It could be of different levels. To have the confidence about whatever level one is capable of with confidence, but can exercise that and manifest. So I will go for confidence.
So we have two confidence, two capability, but I think I guess it also depends on which stage of the journey you are in, right? But we look at these three buckets individually. So Naya, back to you. Now, you have been the founder and also the founding member of many well-known companies. Now you're set to start, you've already kickstarted EDT, which is a global consumer appliance brand. Now, I want to know from you, what gives founders, of course, taking cue from your own journey, what gives founders the confidence to think global from day one?
So, with EDT, we're building a new age consumer brand that's reimagining the way the devices, the daily devices that power our lives across home, kitchen, and beauty actually get developed. So we're actually building this out from scratch. And we do have a global team, Ritika. I think this time around, we've said we're going to be global from day zero. That is our DNA. I was just telling Radhika, we have an office in Bombay, in Maharashtra, one office in Bangalore, a small office in California, and a small office in Hong Kong. So we're literally global from get-go. Our advisors are, folks who head hardware at OpenAI, so we have a very, very global footprint. We will be launching in India though. But I think what gives me the confidence, or gives, I would say, my generation of entrepreneurs the confidence that we can build globally defining brands and category defining brands from India is, number one, it has to be done. Like, it is India's time. Somebody needs to do it. And we do have some amazing people who set the pathway for that to be real, right? So I think that is one piece to it, that people are setting the pathway. We have the ambition, we have the aspiration, we want to do it.
Oh, absolutely. I agree. Mr. Subramaniam, now India's logistics industry is set to hit 350 billion US dollars by 2030. Now, given what all that's happening around the world with macroeconomic volatility, supply chain disruptions disrupting even the biggest of players, tell me, what does true logistics resilience look like for a MSME today?
Resilience. I think in general, when we talk of resilience, the most important topic which comes to my mind is how broad-based are you? Yeah, if I am an MSME and I'm looking to build resilience, I will ask myself, how broad-based is my customer base? How broad-based, or how many alternatives can I line up for my raw materials or sourcing my capabilities which are needed to run the business? Are there too many dependencies around me? Yeah, so these are a few items which can disrupt you when there is volatility. Yeah, so most important first step is for MSMEs to broad base themselves. That's the first step. Second point, if you ask me from a resilience point of view, is how deep your customer understanding is, how deep are your bonds you build with your customers, and how strong is your brand with the customer. Yeah, so the two very, very basic items. Yeah, from a logistics point of view, I think increasingly it is becoming important that the MSMEs, especially, gone are the days when the small businesses need to do everything by themselves. Yeah, the MSMEs should get into the thought process of saying that I will focus on my core business and I will go to experts for supporting me on my, what can I say, the accessorial needs of accessing the market and doing the business.
Sure, absolutely. Shifting gears to healthcare. Neha, now the healthcare industry, it is largely purpose-driven, but also, capital intensive, right? And I know you've been in the industry for very long. We set up Ceternity, which was acquired by Culfit, a major milestone. And now you're set up Luma Fertility. Tell me though, how do you align your vision, your purpose with the right investor?
I think it's a very interesting question, Ritika. But basically, I think in my journey, which started in 2013, I built Fraternity, which was, trying to aggregate fitness services, and it was acquired by Cult. I feel like the investors that I needed in that journey were very different. It was B2C, it was consumer, it was marketplace, and the startup industry was also very, very different. Like back in 2013, Naya and I know, right? Like we had limited investors. Startup was not a buzzword. But when I decided to start Luma, and I started Luma when in an industry which is sort of, IVF and fertility, very, very already, intense competition, exists in the healthcare market. But as a second-time founder, what I realized that, it's very important to not only get founder market fit, but an investor sort of fit with regards to the market as well, right? So like you rightly said, right? Like who has the sort of understanding of the fact that thesis is changing and evolving in healthcare. And I think for us, the thesis was that consumerism in healthcare, which is basically building with the patient at the center, right? So you're re-architecting the entire journey with the patient at the center. And this thesis is basically what we believe is taking over and will define the next decades in healthcare.
Ashutosh, I want to bring you in here. Now, we're in Mumbai, of course, and we are talking about what all that's happening in and around Maharashtra. Maharashtra's housing investment, it is a 70,000 crore investment that is set to address, redevelopment of slums, green housing, inclusive housing. But I want to understand, with that kind of capital, what are the opportunities do you see opening up for businesses in the real estate sector, and especially MSMEs in the real estate value chain?
Yeah, I think the potential is immense. I think housing as such, everybody needs housing, which is the most primary, one of the most primary demands, so to speak, needs. Now, this policy, what it enables is to convert that need into reality. And what it means is not only to big cities like Mumbai, but also there are so many other cities, towns, semi-urban areas, tehsil places, and even villages. All these places now will have formal housing. By formal housing, we mean a pakka ghar. So many of houses are still not pakka houses back in the rural areas. So there are so many local variants with which the houses are built. The materials are different. The way houses are constructed are so different. The ingredients are different. The workmanship is different. So there is so much of variety. One does not need to copy some design where the house was built somewhere else and just replicate. It is so much of indigenous character to housing, and MSMEs will have a lot of play here. Because there are so many building materials and fixtures and services that go in. There are literally hundreds of components of a house, and majority of that comes from the MSME fraternity. So I think the opportunity is immense.
It's time for a quick break here. We'll be back shortly. Stay tuned. Welcome back to IDFC First Bank presents Leaders of Tomorrow Season 13, powered by Tata Tele Business Services, and you're watching highlights from Mumbai Springboard. Continuing our panel discussion on capital, confidence and capability. Listen in.
When you talk about capability, we have to talk about digital adoption, technology. And Naya, I want to bring you in here again. You've been a tech entrepreneur. You're also a member of the Tech Entrepreneurs Association of Mumbai. And I understand, you must be working with or meeting a lot of founders and business owners, in tech, right? Tell me really, on ground, how is technology truly reshaping entrepreneurship in India? Are there certain, opportunities that founders are perhaps still underestimating?
I genuinely think what we're seeing play out with generative AI is one of the most catalytic changes of our time and in human history. Of course, we've heard of the comps to it being as foundational a technology as electricity. But it genuinely is so. And I'll give you an example, which is my example. When I started my journey, my first company, Baby Chakra, in 2015, same vintage as Neha, I had to build out my engineering team, my marketing team, my content community team, creating one collateral for our app at that point in time would take us an inordinate amount of man or woman hours, as you'd like to call it. A lot of stuff that would take us time would be also content creation, so many things, right? Also data wetting. Right now, my team is all like a sum total of probably 10 people. We communicate seamlessly, we work seamlessly, we generate content seamlessly.
So, Mr. Subramanian, what Naya just said, I'm just going to pick up from that. Does the logistics industry also look at technology as a partner? And which are some of the emerging technologies that you think will really change the game for small businesses?
See, when it comes to small businesses, there's a number of 60 million is being quoted as the SMEs. I think still e-commerce remains uncharted territory. Yeah. There are quite a few of them who are at the forefront of exploiting the opportunity which e-commerce offers. But I think there is millions of legacy businesses who still not woken up to or still not yet fully tech enabled in that sense. And I think that's where a great opportunity exists. Why? What is a great opportunity? I think enabling yourself to be present in an e-commerce environment, meaning internet commerce, various platforms on your own or through various other marketplaces which are available. SMEs break the barrier of being tied down to a geography. Yeah. Tied down to a geography. And if you relate it back to the resilience question which you asked me, the moment you broad-base yourself, you have broken the geographic barrier, you've broken the here and now where I can reach in terms of customer base is a barrier which you removed, then that straight away puts you on a different platform. Yeah. Being present in that market, wanting to be in that market pushes you to build certain capabilities. Yeah. Pushes you to model your business to be able to cater to a wide-ranging customer base, and that puts you on a positive cycle. Yeah. So for me, still the bridge to cross is for e-commerce for a lot of people, because there is an entire spectrum of SMEs. Some of them who are very well versed and really exploiting it, early adopters, well developed, and there are a large number of people who still to catch up with it. Next generation, you're able to adapt and use AI. Yeah. So they come in steps. I think you need to take the ABCD first.
Absolutely. But, Neha, when we speak of the healthcare sector, digital health solutions are on the rise, but so is skepticism. How does one ensure in the health business that you don't lose the human touch? Like, how do you maintain the balance between now we have AI taking over? I mean, how do you maintain the trust as well?
No, and I think you've said a very important point. I think what we are hearing more and more is that, healthcare is, of course, getting more transactional, and I think we all know, how that feels on the other side as a patient or consumer. And the humanness and, how do you really anchor that journey, whether it is oncology, fertility, cardiology, or anything small like a test, right? And I think the humanness, what we are seeing, and I think very similar to what you guys said as well, that, AI is helping out in a lot of ways, which is freeing up people's bandwidth to actually help on the human touch, right? So we have care navigators who are assigned to every patient, who anchor the whole journey, but 90% of their work is actually being done by the help of AI, which is doing all the sort of grunt work of reading through medical records, anchoring everything, making the doctor prescriptions, interpreting that, creating reports. So all of that is actually being done, by AI. And the human touch and that trust, that transparency, that ethics, which is what healthcare should sort of lead first with, is something that, we believe that we can actually be in the right direction with all of this work being taken care by AI. So it's actually a great step in that direction.
Right. Ashutosh, coming to you now, when it comes to technology in real estate, I definitely want to ask you your inputs on, how PropTech is going to change the game. But just as an extension of that question, now I read somewhere very recently, now you can buy a piece of land on quick commerce within 10 minutes or 15 minutes. So while it's great that technology is really, taking us places, but why would someone want to buy land in 15 minutes?
Yeah, I think that's something which will take some time really to buy a piece of land digitally, so to speak, or take an online research and into that. But PropTech has done a lot of good things to this sector. I think this sector was one of the more opaque sectors, and the best part PropTech has done is unearthing the information of unearthing the power of information, and what it has enabled is a common house buyer or every stakeholder now has access to information, which was severely lacking in the earlier years. So if that information now is used well, that can lead to a very well-informed decision of purchasing a house, which is perhaps the biggest decision in terms of money invested for most of us.
So I want to quickly ask you by way of your closing remarks, one leadership trait you think that is absolutely necessary to navigate the challenges that we are facing today, for all the entrepreneurs out there, how they can actually navigate the volatility, the macroeconomic tensions that are happening all around the world. Let's hear it from you first, Naya, again.
So I think the first thing is around just being very agile and and constantly in learning mode. This is technically my third venture, Ritika. And, I'm learning so much every day. And it's such a privilege to actually have that learning continue. And I'm very grateful for it.
Nice. And so what is your survival mantra?
I think I should quote, maybe it's a good forum to talk about. DHL has a leadership framework. Yeah. It's very simple and small, which says leader should have head, heart, guts, and bite. Yeah. Head is clarity. Your heart is purpose, because you're doing a business. If you are able to connect it to a larger purpose, for example, DHL, we say that we are connecting people and improving lives. Yeah, that's at the core of everything logistics does. So therefore, purpose is heart. Guts is life is full of ambiguity and complexity. So are you able to stay course in the middle of so much of volatility in the market? And more importantly, bite, which is, I think, lot of people here and some of the startup entrepreneurs sitting on the stage, they have a lot of bite, which is that the will to succeed and not to give up. Yeah. So I think head, heart, guts, and bite for me is a fantastic leadership framework which describes a leader what he needs to run a ongoing enterprise or to build a startup to a big company. I think DHL, I can add one more line here. DHL is a startup which has become a global enterprise now. It was a small idea which became a big thing. Yeah, today it's a $80 billion company, but it started with 3 small entrepreneurs who saw an opportunity of moving a document between 2 countries ahead of a ship arriving. Yeah, shipping documents arriving before a ship arrives at the port was the big idea which has become a global express industry. So I think everybody on the stage here, everybody out there has an opportunity to build a global enterprise.
That is very inspiring. Neha, over to you.
Amazing. I don't think I can top that. So well put. So I actually, just recollected a quote, which is what you were saying. So basically this is, somebody sees a person riding a lion and they're like, oh my God, look at how this person's riding the lion. So glorious. Look at them. They've got it all together. He's riding the lion. And the guy riding the lion is the entrepreneur. And he's wondering, how did I get on this and how do I get off? Right? So I think for me, that is something that an entrepreneur feels or a business leader feels every single day. That you need to be a little delusional and you need to be crazily optimistic to keep going and fighting every battle and waking up next day and fighting more. So I think I would sort of boil down to resilience and perseverance and being a little delusional.
That's absolutely very inspiring, Ashutosh.
Yeah, and I think embracing change, that's the virtue that I think is quite important, and to accept that the world is going to be different, and no 2 days are going to be the same. Accepting that and preparing for that, implementing for that, I think that's something which is quite crucial.
I think these were some really, really good takeaways for our entrepreneurs watching the show today, as well as who are in our audience. Thank you so much for your time. I think this was a very, very fruitful discussion. Thank you so much.
With that, it's a wrap on this edition of IDFC First Bank Presents Leaders of Tomorrow Season 13, powered by Tata Tele Business Services. We hope you enjoyed the episode. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.